Hello, my name's Cody Hale, and I am an illustrator and ink splatter artist, and I'd like to welcome you to my studio. I've been drawing pretty much my whole life. I took a class in college where I had a professor that kind of introduced an ink splatter technique, and it was mostly for kind of an added thing to your ink illustrations. But we did a masking technique that I liked, so I took it and I tried to take it to the next level. And then I started doing full illustrations in ink splatter, and I really liked the way they look. I really liked the texture, the limited color palettes where I could have areas that popped and all the contrast. And I just kind of really liked the way it looked, so I've kind of stuck with it. I like sci-fi, fantasy, I always have. I've been drawing aliens since I was probably 10. I've got a whole book of aliens that I drew when I was a kid, and I've just kind of kept it going ever since. When I was in college, I really got into, illustration and comic book art. And I never really went down the path of comic book art because I like to illustrate and I like fine art, but I do kind of like the same themes, and sci-fi and fantasy is something that I'm really interested in particular aliens. Well, this is one that I'm working on right now, and it's not even close to finished yet. Like you can see with this particular one that I've started layering the sky, and it's just layers of splattered ink. And to kind of give you an idea, I'll do an underdrawing first. There's really 3 steps, trying to get the composition and the drawing laid out, which is the first step. And then I'll go back in and I'll start masking off areas of my drawing, and I'll start splattering. I usually work from dark to light, not always, it depends on what colors I'm gonna be using. So I use calligraphy inks, and I also use Dr. P.H. Martin color inks. They have a lot of vibrant colors, and they work really well for splatter. So I'll just take ink and I'll put it down, and then I use toothbrushes, which a lot of people are interested in. That particular part of the technique is the toothbrush splatter part. And the reason I use toothbrushes is because they have a really short bristle and a really short brush, and it makes it where the paint will splatter and flick onto the canvas in kind of a really fine way. I like it a little bit better than, say, if I was using an airbrush, it would go down even finer, which is great, but I really like the grainy texture effect that you can get with splattering with a brush. So I'd blot the brush a lot. As you can see, I waste a lot of ink, but that's just part of the process. So I can get a really fine splatter. If you put too much ink on the brush, you get really big splatters, which is fine, but when I'm starting off, I like to layer with a really fine splatter. But it takes a lot of layers. Particularly, like, you would think black ink would go down really dark, and if you're working on any other project, you would hate to get a drop of black ink on your paper. But with this, it takes a lot of splattering to actually get a really dark black for contrast. So it actually takes a long time to build up those values when you're only, splattering ink. What I would do once I got done with a particular part is I'd actually take this particular mask off. So what would happen is that particular area would be exposed. So that's kind of the technique. I was getting my prints made somewhere else when I first started, but I didn't really like the quality. And in particular, I didn't like the types of paper they were using for the prints, because what I've focused on with my illustrations is texture with the ink splatter, and I really like the textures and the tones. And so I wanted kind of a rougher paper that had a little bit of texture. So I ended up finding a paper that I liked, and I bought an Epson printer that was for printing fine, high quality prints and art prints. And I started making my own prints. I'd like to thank the Art Center of Cannon County for coming out to my studio, and I will have my prints for sale in the gift shop in Cannon County, the White Oak Gift Shop. So if you'd like to check out my work or buy a print, then stop by there and see what you can find. Thank you very much.